Welcome to the Think Fitness Life podcast, your one-stop shop for exploring the connections between fitness, health, and overall well-being. Join us as we dive deep into all aspects of a balanced and vibrant life, from pushing your limits in the gym to finding peace of mind outside of it. Whether you're a seasoned athlete or just starting your journey, you are in the right place to discover the knowledge and insight to perfect your fitness life.
We are live again with the Think Fitness Life podcast today with a personal story interview. I'm here with Kristy from Clean Eating with Kristy, who is going to dive into her personal story of a 60-pound weight loss transformation and diving into strength training and getting involved with CrossFit to make it a more permanent lifestyle change into her habits. We're talking about the span of a 20-year personal story and journey here, folks. So none of this stuff happens overnight. And without any further ado, I'd like to introduce Kristy. So thanks for joining us here today, Kristy.
Thank you for having me.
And where would you like to start us on your journey? I mean, this is quite a long journey, I think, with plenty of ups and downs in between. And I think it just your story already further exemplifies why people need to not attach themselves to the fruits of their labors, right? Because then they're like, oh my gosh, I'm just starting to work out. I'm just starting to make changes. Why aren't I seeing anything happen in the mirror? And then they lose that momentum pretty quickly. So tell me how your momentum and your fire got started.
Yeah. So 20 years ago, I was 30. Is seeing myself in a picture that was not who I recognized. Did not recognize her, just all of the things when you look at a picture. And I was just leaving a single marriage or a toxic marriage. So I was a single mom. And what I was finding was that I was using food for comfort, and that food for comfort kept coming in, right? And I was using that to, just fill the void, fill the love, fill, everything that I was feeling at that moment. But it was doing nothing for me. And that's when, social media wasn't like it is today. We didn't have immediate pictures. So you had to wait for the picture to be developed and then, have it come back and you're like, oh my gosh, that's what I look like. Like, I just don't even like that person. I don't recognize her at all. Yeah. And that was the line in the sand for me, was I knew that I had to do something, but I didn't know exactly what that looked like at that point, except that I knew it had to do something with the food, because that was my coping mechanism. And that's really just singly where I knew I had to start. Yeah. And so I really just examined all of that. What did that look like? I was going through drive-thrus. I was doing takeout. I was just binge eating all the time. And so really just okay, how can we do this? How can we do this at home, healthy way? Also on a single mom's budget. That was also very, taxing as well, but figuring a way to do it because I wanted to do it. I no longer wanted to be the person that was looking back at me in that picture.
Yeah. So when you talk about kind of the food being, the source of comfort, and which is so relatable, right? We all kind of grab some ice cream when we're feeling bad, or grab some ice cream to celebrate when we did something well, right? And it's so tied to our pleasure reward system. Did you find that, was there kind of a period where you were self-medicating with food and things got worse? Would you say that you kind of hit a rock bottom, so to speak? Or was it just something that you noticed one day in the mirror and you wanted to catch it before it got too bad?
Yeah, I think I knew I was crashing, but it just, when it feels good and you're just in that momentum of like, well, this is what I do, and so like I'm going to continue to do this. You know you're going down. You know you're not where you should be, but it's that kind of like, okay, how do I get out of here? So I don't think, like, I think that's kind of what it was like I knew I was crashing. I knew I was going down. I knew I had to change things.
Yeah.
And then it was like that, oh, wait, okay, no, like, this is it.
Yeah.
We have to, but nobody around me. The other thing is too, looking back at it, nobody around me said anything to me, right?
Right.
Like, my friends didn't stop me. They didn't say anything. They didn't, because I think I was doing it kind of like in a normal, quote unquote, way of eating. And like going through drive-throughs, like I would eat in secret, so like nobody would see me, right? So going through drive-throughs, and my daughter was 5. So what did she know? She's not old enough like to be able to tell me. So I'm feeding her the same things, right? So just like those kind of things. And that, I think, is just also one of those things. Like, I didn't have anybody being like, hey, Kristy, you know what? Like, maybe, I'll help you do this, or maybe you could do this instead. It was very much, I was in this rabbit hole.
You bring up such an interesting point, because I think that's kind of the something that personally upsets me about our society, is that we don't have that kind of, not tough love, but just like an honest love, right? I mean, it's like someone would be too afraid to say, hey, I think you're eating too much, right? I mean, wouldn't, as the party who's hearing that, you're like, mind your own beeswax, right?
Right.
But I think there is a value to being open and honest with the people you love around you, and that's just like a different layer of love. But that's interesting that you brought that up, that nobody around you kind of was saying anything, and you had to be the one to kind of notice your bad behavior and pull yourself out of it. Would you say that being a mother made things a lot more difficult because you had less of time for you, or did it or did it have an extra stimulus behind it of like, I gotta change, and this is a motivating piece why?
Looking back, that was my why. Was I didn't want my daughter to develop the same habits that I had. And I didn't want her to see like, I remember not being able to get up off of the floor when I was playing with her because I didn't have the energy. So I would like bring everything down on the floor and be like, okay, we're just going to play Barbies, and like sit against the sofa. Right. And just like sit there and play with her because that's what I could do. And I didn't want to be that mom for her. So she really was my why. Yeah. And she was the reason for me to do these things, for like, okay, you know what, mommy's going to start walking now, so you're going to bring your bike, right? And there was always like her and I, because I was a single mom, I didn't have a choice, so she had to come with me to do all of the things too. So she was my why. And that is actually, it's interesting because a lot of the women that I work with now, children are they can be the difficulty and the struggle, and they don't know how to prioritize themselves and make themselves that number one person for that time being. And I think that really gives me an advantage because I had to. I knew that I had to. If I didn't, then I was going to be stuck in that place. So everything that I did was with her, or I finagled a way to be able to bring her to the gym with me that had childcare. Like you, when you're a single mom, you are probably the most creative person in the world to be able to get
come up with solutions, right? Yeah.
Yes, because otherwise it's not going to happen. And so I learned very, very quickly how to be creative and what I had to do in order to prioritize myself.
What were some of the first changes that you remember making when you after you looked in the mirror and said, no, I got to change this, got to stop this downward spiral here? What were some of the first changes that you made?
Cooking at home.
Okay. Yeah, that's a huge one. 80% of the game is nutrition, right?
It is. And so figuring out for me, it was really important because as an emotional eater, figuring out for me those tastes and what, like that first taste on your tongue, it's got to be so mind blowing for you to be able to continue. Um, so I had to figure out how to be able to replicate that at home. And
Interesting.
so I did a lot of experimenting and a lot of like different types of like trying foods and cookies.
Flavor
But
palettes. Yeah.
yes, yep. And what was interesting though, I stayed with what I knew. So what I would order out and what I would take out. So like hamburgers and Philly cheesesteaks. We lived in Philadelphia at the time. Those were the things that I started to cook at home because those are where my cravings were. And I wanted to be able to do that, but in a way, that was healthy and using my
Healthier.
ingredients.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
probably like starting out, I wasn't swapping out ingredients. I was just doing like the basics, what I knew. And then as I learned, that was the fun part because then I was like, oh, wait, I could do it with this or I could do it with this. So, bringing those flavors into the home first was really important for me to be able to learn how to do.
And making the nutritional changes first. And then when would you say in your journey did you start incorporating more activity and exercise?
So when I started to see the results of my weight loss, specifically when my clothes were looser, that's when I was like, that for me made the connection of, oh, okay, what we're doing is working. So this is what we want. Now, because I was not doing any exercise at the time. And the reason why is because exercise was never an important part of my life. So that wasn't anything that I was even thinking about bringing in. And so then I was like, ooh, imagine if you started exercising, Kristy. Imagine the results that you would get because this is just from the food. So now what if we combined exercise with food? What would happen? So it was like in my mind, I was like, oh, this is kind of fun. Let's see now what else we can do to
ramp it up. You're getting like a little addicted once you see those results.
Truly. No, truly. I'm like, oh, I can wear this shirt today. I haven't worn this in a long time. Like it was it was simple things like wearing button down shirts that the buttons didn't pop when I sat down. Right. Those things, those were the things that in my mind. And then I was like, okay, now we're ready to take it up the next level. So what does that look like?
So what was the time period from when you first started making the nutrition changes to the time period that you first started to exercise? How long was that? And then how much weight did you lose in that period?
So I would say it was probably a good 2 years for me just concentrating on my food. There was also just a lot of moving that I had to move states and other things that were out of my control. So 2 years. Yeah. And then just kind of figuring out you're trying to figure out a new normal when that happens too, because now this is different. Right. And it's like, oh, this isn't what I'm used to. So now we're doing another new normal. And I think that's for every stage is it's another new normal of what it is. So it was about 2 years. And then I began to, I didn't join a gym, first of all, because I didn't have money to do that. So I started walking and outside, which, is one of the easiest things to do, but we take it for granted that we don't do it.
Absolutely.
I started walking and then I bought a $50 treadmill off of Craigslist. And I was determined to get this thing into my apartment. And I started starting to run on that, just a little bit here and there. And once I became more confident with that, then I was like, okay, now let me join a gym. Let me see what I had zero idea what I was doing at the gym, but I was like, let me see what I can do there. And so it was baby steps, right? I
love it. Kind of biting off what you can chew at a time.
Yep.
Right. And I love it too, because, I think so many people get stuck in the contemplative stage. and they're thinking like too many steps ahead, and we get into a spot of paralysis by analysis, rather than just like, well, this is the variable I can control right now, so I'm going to control it. I'm not going to worry about the rest. I mean, did you struggle with any anxiety about the whole ordeal at the time, that or throughout the period, that made you just kind of like stop, or the wheels fall off along the way, or you feel like you made manageable steps along the way to kind of
Yeah, I have to say, because everything was so new for me, and it still is, in this entire journey, even today, like 20 years later, I'm still exploring new things about myself. Though I was being surprised by myself with what I could do. So I never, like, I wasn't coming from an athlete background. I wasn't coming from a competitive background where I was like, oh, I did this like 10 years ago. I should be able to do this. For me, everything along the way has been brand new for me and opened up new doors. And so I am taking those small steps, because it's scary for me to think like, oh, wait, if I do really well and I do this, then what does this mean? Right. So I tend to probably take smaller steps maybe than the normal person, just because I don't like, it's very nerve-wracking for me. It's like, I don't know what is going to happen if I go through this door, if I can do this thing. So it was just manageable baby steps. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And I think that's honestly such a gift, I think, because you take such small steps, you don't fall, right? Like if we take a nice big step, it's going to be easier for us to slip out from underneath us.
Yeah.
And, I love how, you kind of took the organized chaos of your schedule, of being a mother, and found a way to integrate it. Or even the way that you took, something I want to highlight is the way that you took your cravings and integrated that into healthy eating. I think so many times people try to like put their unhealthy behavior or cravings in a jail, and it's locked in there, and they're never going to let those out again. But tension only creates more tension. They eventually come back with a vengeance, right? And they take over.
They come popping back out. Exactly.
Right. But for you to say, you know what? I love red meat, or I love a burger, and I'm just going to do that in a healthier way so that it doesn't, impede my long-term goals of my health, and the way I look at myself. So again, I love that you took baby steps, kind of took bigger steps as you went, and it sounds like you're like integrated everything together. Talk to me a little bit about some of the life lessons along the journey that you learned that you'd like to share.
Ugh. So many life lessons now.
And we're all still learning more, right?
And I think that's a really cool thing, is that just, you're not going to stop as you continue to grow and change your life lessons. You're going to continue to learn and grow, which is the really, really cool thing. I think the biggest thing for me has been that for so long, it was about the weight that I had lost and that I had to control, right? Because once I lost that 60 pounds, then there's that number that you don't ever want to see back on the scale again, right?
Right.
So even if it creeps up like 2 pounds, you're like, oh my God, okay, no, like panic sets in. However, so over the last 20 years, I was my most insecure at my lowest weight.
Interesting. Okay.
Because I was constantly stressed about staying at that weight. So, and what would people think if I gained 5 pounds? And I was getting such a great reaction from people who had known me before, right? And then you lose 60 pounds and it's now, oh, Kristy, you look so amazing. You look so great. I remember just like, I was the most insecure person because it was always outward for me. It was always, well, what do they see? What do they see? It wasn't until the strength training piece of it that I began to be more confident and learn that I didn't need to make myself smaller, because that smaller person was always stressed and always overwhelmed and always needing, like the
The outside
external
validation.
gratification.
Right.
100%. Now I am the most confident person that I feel like I have ever been. And I can't tell you the last time I stood on a scale.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I just
that.
don't know my number. I know how my clothes fit, right? And I know how I want them to fit, but
Yeah.
I'm no longer chasing that small number. I'm no longer chasing that thing. And so I think just being able to learn to be comfortable in myself and seeing myself and identifying as somebody who is strong, right? And who is confident. That was something that has never, that's been a really big lesson for me, because I never saw myself as that person. And now I do, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. And I love that. I think so many people struggle with that. I think that's such a common problem that's out there. And I think you kind of highlighted what the differentiator is like, the grass is greener where we water it. If we constantly, and what we pay attention to grows in our awareness. If we're just constantly focused on the number on the scale or the look in the mirror, and we're always looking for the problem, then we're always, just to your point, like incessantly worrying that we're not good enough. And I love that. I love that strength training brought you to a different layer of, what am I capable of? And I'm kind of getting that maybe lifting heavy things created this like self-efficacy, this like, I am capable of so much, and I am strong, and I am powerful. And it took it away, or it took it deeper than just the superficial like look and weight number.
Yeah. It's to me, it's still crazy, like the strength training and what I've been able to do. I lifted, so at my highest weight, it was about 212 pounds. And I PR'd my deadlift the other day.
Oh, right. Nice. Wish I could give you a high five.
Looking for personalized workout plans? Whether you prefer to train at home or hit the gym, try a 14-day free trial of the Think Fitness Life mobile app. Get customized workouts, nutrition guidance, and coaching from a qualified professional who will be in your corner every step of the way. Visit www.thinkfitnesslife.com to start your free trial today. That's www.thinkfitnesslife.com.
I know, right? Awesome. Thank you. I think
sometimes what can help is if you, I think we're there. I think we're good. I think we're back. We'll be able to edit all this stuff out, so don't worry. Okay. So you PR'd your deadlift?
So I PR'd my deadlift at 215.
Yeah, that's great.
I didn't realize it. But you know what is so funny? Like, I didn't realize that until I went home, and what I've been doing is videoing myself so I can like
see the form,
remind myself of how far I've come.
Okay.
Yep. And see the form and just like all the things. And I got home and I was watching it, and I texted my gym partner and I was like, holy crap, I just lifted my old self. Like that, and it was like that moment where I forgot about her for so long.
Yeah.
Right. And then you're like, wait a minute, like I just lifted her. Like, that's crazy to me that is that strength. I don't know. It just, it blows my mind, But, what I can do now, because of the journey and because of where I was, is really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's, again, more to the point of just kind of how the journey just kind of keeps growing and expanding, and you get kind of like deeper. Like, would you say that your why grew and evolved as well? Like, it may have started with this stimulation of, I have a daughter, and now it's maybe a little bit deeper.
Yeah. Now, and so my daughter, who started with me on the journey. She's 25. And she actually, probably by the time this podcast comes out, she's going to deliver. She's due any day now.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So I'm going to be a grandmom. I also have a 10-year-old daughter as well. So I'm like, my why now is I still want to be active for my youngest, but now I've got a grandchild, right? That I'm like, and I see, like, I just want to be, I want to be that person, but also too, I want women to know that they can do the hard things. They can do these things. Age really right now is nothing. It's the feeling. I think so long, like for so many of us, we don't chase that feeling because we're afraid of where it's going to take us. And that feeling of being confident, that feeling of being powerful, that feeling of, I can do hard things and I'm going to do this. I'm going to figure out how I'm going to do this instead of just backing down in a corner and saying, this is comfortable. This is just kind of where I'm going to stay. You know, I think that's really, the why is once you start to see yourself doing it, then there becomes this like, what if, right?
What if I can go further, right? Like, almost like a why not? Well, why not try to do this, right?
So I mean, go ahead.
You know, I think it is really important to share your story with other women, because I think you highlight overcoming some of the common roadblocks that women are faced with, right? I mean, the single mother, not having enough time, not having money, feeling like you know, nobody's helping them. They don't have the social people in their corner. You know, also weights, right? So many people are like, if I touch weights, I don't want to get too bulky. So I feel like you did such a good job at thwarting the common roadblocks along the way. And like, what would you say are some of, like, maybe some advice that you start to give out for people who are thinking about making those changes?
You know, you have to take that first step. That's, I think that's the most important thing. And for anybody who is like, well, but, you know, like, what if, I always say, just pick one reason. Why would you want to do this? Right? And how do you think that you would feel if you could do this one thing? Like, we're not talking, I didn't know that I was going to lose 60 pounds. Right? I never knew that I was going to lift over 200-pound deadlift. I just wanted to feel good in my jeans. That's really where it started. And I wanted to be a good mom for my daughter. And so pick your one reason. And how would you feel if you could do that? And then that's where you start. And I always like, write it, make it a screen protector on your phone. Put stickies so that it's constantly in your face, because like you said, you will start to do what you are thinking about all the time and what you are seeing, right? So if you're constantly thinking about your why, every move you make, if it's on the cupboard, if it's on your phone, if it's, you know, on the mirror in the bathroom, you're going to be like, oh, right. Yes, this is why I'm doing this. Right. So a lot of times we choose why we're going to do it, but we don't put it down anywhere so that we can see it or write it down or even tell anybody. And then it slowly drifts away because it's not front and center. Right.
So you got to make it more concrete.
100%. And then you can ask yourself, like, for me, I still to this day, do I need to eat this right now? And if I eat this, how is it going to make me feel? Those are the two questions, you know, that I ask myself, and you always have an answer, right? Do I need to eat this right now? Yes or no? Okay. Then if it's no, what do I do instead? Right. There's always an alternative. And if you can do something each time you make a decision to take you closer to the person you want to be, then that's where those baby steps come in. And you just continue to like do it. It's like, it's habits, and those habits become routine, and they become easier and easier the more you do them.
Yeah. Yeah. I like to also highlight too that it only feels easier because you're actually getting better, right? Like
Yes.
the outside stimulus is still there, and it's probably even getting harder. You're just getting better at handling all this stuff and juggling all of it.
And you have more tools, right? In your tool belt. I like to call them
absorbed along the way. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And or more knowledge, right? Like you've made this recipe 10 different times. So guess what? Now I'm going to like spice it and then I'm going to add something else to it, right? I use the kitchen and food a lot because that's what I'm familiar with.
Right.
You know, and so, but it's the same with the gym, right? Like I walk into the gym sometimes and I'm like, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to do this today. Like I just can't do this.
Yeah.
But guess what? We do baby steps. We do modifications.
Just
we do
got to
scaling.
get to the gym. Right. Right. I'm not feeling that well. I'll adapt the workout a little.
Exactly. Yep. And sometimes it's even just at the point where I've told clients, you know, who want to start moving and want to start exercising, just practice putting your shoes on. Practice tying your sneakers, putting your shoes on, opening the door and walking outside. If you can't get yourself yet to do, you know, X, Y, and Z, you have to start somewhere. And where's the starting? You have to get yourself ready to go. So tie the sneakers on, walk to the end of the driveway and come back again.
I love it.
That's a win. That's a win, right? And then tomorrow you go to the end of the street and then you come back again. Like all of those things, but social media makes it crazy for us because we think we have to be doing these, you know, ridiculous
Got to
things.
run with a weighted vest or something in the cold. Like, right.
Yeah. Like, no, we don't. We just have to, for some of us, it's just putting our sneakers on and walking to the end of the driveway and giving our brain evidence that, yeah, we can do that. So tomorrow I'm going to go double that distance.
Yeah. And I think also something I'm going to ask you here in a second, I think sometimes when people are just starting their journey, they look at people who are living healthy and they look at their routine and they're like, oh my gosh, I wouldn't be able to do that 3 times a week. And then I'd have to do this 2 times a week. And I got to go grocery shop. You know what I mean? Like they get so overwhelmed. But kind of to your point, like we kind of like build this lifestyle, you know, kind of like habit stacking, like one at a time. And now, you know, your routine it's not like an arduous task to pull yourself to do your routine. You probably look forward to your routine, right?
Yeah. It's your body and your mind start to like almost go through withdrawal when you don't do your routine, right? Like rest days are really hard for me right now because I like the feeling of being confident. I like what that looks like, right? So rest days look different for me now than they did a year ago because I don't want to stop. I want to keep going because I see what's happening. But yeah, it becomes easier, and your easy is different than my easy. That I think, you know, we have to remember that too, is that everybody's easy is different. Everybody's hard is different. And I like what you said about, like not taking all of those things. You pick one of those things that you want to work on and you give yourself grace, give yourself so much grace, but you show up for yourself every single day and you do that thing.
So fast forward to now, what does Kristy's weekly routine or week at a glance look like?
It's so funny because I was thinking about making a reel about this because it's so different than
when it started. Right.
Like I would have never, ever, and it's so interesting because I would have never, even 10 years ago, I would have never imagined my life today, you know, how it is. So it's, first of all, I'm working from home. I get to coach amazing women in their own health journeys, which is like a dream.
Really rewarding.
It's so rewarding, but it just is like, it's something I'm passionate about. So I do that. But then also at the same time, my day is like spent also to prioritizing myself. So I drop my daughter off in the morning at school. I go to the gym and I'm there to warm up. I'm there to, do the workout. Then I come home. I spend some time prepping. That's a priority for me, is to make sure that I definitely have food in the house that I need. And then I spend the afternoon coaching. I spend the afternoon teaching. I spend the afternoon, doing those things. And then I'm home in the evening for my family too. It's something I have incorporated as well, which is brand new this year. Talk about habit stacking, is I've been walking every day for 45 minutes. I've walked in the rain, in the snow, in the wind, because it's something that I wanted to add to what I've been doing. And it was a promise that I made to myself. So that's something that's new this year that I have done.
Cool.
And I find myself, I feel like you find yourself wanting to try
a little bit
new
more,
things,
right?
new things. Yeah, like a little more. What if? It's that what if.
And when we got on, I saw a little dog. Does your dog get to benefit from your new walking routine?
100%.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And my 10-year-old is coming with me as well. So she's coming
it.
with me. And my husband has recently joined the CrossFit gym as well that I've been at. So
you got everybody around you. You were upset that the social aspect, no one was helping you around you, or at least talking to you about it. But now you were the one that sparked everyone else around you.
Yes.
You were the change you wanted to see. That's a beautiful thing.
I love that.
What's your favorite lift in the gym?
My favorite lift in the gym is a deadlift.
All right.
Hands down.
I love it. It's funny. That's my favorite lift too. And then it's funny you said that you just started doing the walks. That's something I started not too long ago, a couple of weeks, is I go out for an hour with my dog, because I used to just run him really quick as another thing that I was juggling my day. I gotta get him exercise, 30 minutes. Let's run him. And I was like, you know what? Let's slow it down. Let's do an hour 15 of just a long walk. So I started incorporating them too. And deadlift's my favorite exercise. I think it's one of those ones where the weight's always the same. I mean, the weight's there. It's on the ground. Nothing really changes. It's what can you bring to the plate that day? Your energy level, your focus, and are you going to be able to move that weight today differently than last week, type of deal. So it's such a rewarding lift, in my opinion.
It is. And I think too, for so long, I didn't really dive into this, but my back, for years, I actually went to a chiropractor sometime twice a week, because I was bedridden sometimes, because my back was so out. Now,
was this before you started your journey, or throughout the journey?
Throughout. I've my mom always had a bad back, and that was just kind of the thing that was oh, my mom had a bad back,
so I'm gonna have one.
A bad back, right? And since starting CrossFit 4 years now, I have not had my back an episode at all. I go to see him just for regular maintenance about every 6 weeks. And I am lifted, I'm again, the 200, I would have never gone over 200 pounds, because I was oh no, my back, right?
Right.
Always those things. But my core has gotten stronger. So many things have gotten stronger, because of that. So, just cool.
It's funny how it works, right? It's we might have a little injury that would keep us away from doing something like CrossFit, when in reality, it's if we slowly bite onto CrossFit and get into it the right way, it could be the cure.
Yes, absolutely. And when you have absolute wonderful coaches that know you inside and out, that's a fun process too. So,
well, last question I have before I let you go is, what is your favorite quote, or one that comes to mind after today?
So I think my favorite quote is that I can do hard things.
I love it.
And
I love it.
I find myself
repeating that to yourself
very often. And
little self mantra.
Yes. And it even matches with the steps. So if you're running, just learning how to run or things like that, I can do hard things, right? So
the tempo. Yeah. That's funny.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
So where can people go to find you? Maybe they want to work with you. Maybe want to learn more about your story. Where do people go? You have an Instagram YouTube channel, website?
Yeah, Instagram's probably the best.
Okay.
And it's easy. Clean is with a K and Kristy's with a K.
Will you just say that
My
one more time? I think it
story
just
is
got
on
cut
there.
out really
Yeah.
quick.
Okay. Yeah. It's Clean Eating with Kristy on Instagram.
Okay, cool.
So,
And that's the
yep.
same for the website too, right? It's clean with a K,
Clean.
Kristy with a K.
Yep.
Excellent.
CleanEatingWithKristy.com. Yes.
And I'll include that and the Instagram handle, the website, and the Instagram handle in the show notes as well. And yeah, I loved your story. I really appreciate the baby step aspect. I appreciate how you like took the obstacle and went through it rather than avoiding it and trying to run from it. And then I love kind of your. I think there's something to be said for like the quote comes to mind of like calmness in inactivity is not true calmness, but calmness with inactivity is true calmness. Like you just were doing it in this organized chaos manner. And instead of like getting so stuck in the contemplative stage of like, well, how am I going to do this? How am I going to manage this? How am I going to manage this trip in a month? You just like ready,
Right.
fired, aimed. Like you were just like shooting, and you'll aim when you need to.
Yep. I'll switch it up if I have to, but this is what's
Right.
working. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Kristy, thank you so much for diving into the ups and downs of your story and sharing your fitness journey. Again, I think the biggest thing we can do as coaches is to share our stories, because I'm a firm believer that one person's fitness journey is another person's reason for starting. So thanks again for agreeing to hop on here.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. It was fun.